We are on the 6th part of the Rainbow series. A couple of years ago, I was asked by a college student if she could interview me, because she's writing some kind of religious paper, and she wanted to talk to somebody who could explain the difference between New Thought and regular traditional religious philosophy, right? And she wanted somebody who'd been in that background before, and why did they leave, and all that. So it was a fine interview. You know, she bought me some coffee, and so that's always, you know, really nice. But after the interview was over, I sneezed a couple times, right? And I was just like, oh, it's just my allergies acting up, right? Because sometimes, like me, I'm really weird if I get around somebody with a cold. I'm just like, oh no, I just go there, right? So I like to share. Oh, it's just allergies, you don't have to worry about it, right? She looks at me with this very serious look, and she says, if you didn't have negative thinking, you wouldn't have allergies. It's your negative thoughts that are making you sick. And I was like, thank you. Boy, I've never heard that before. Thank you so much, right? Now, you create your own reality. This is a term that we hear a lot, and it has gotten so popular ever since the movie The Secret came out, right? So it's something we hear a lot. Now, in New Thought, it's a little different than in New Age. Okay, the New Thought, you create your own reality, is about getting connected to that Christ mind, all right? And working with the entire reality created by the cosmos, okay? Not just the little reality, it's taking part in the big reality. So it is about changing our thinking, but it's changing our thinking in a way that is working with everybody. And taking the good in with the bad, okay? Not having to have a Pollyanna life, okay? So we do choose how our reality appears to us, and we choose that through the stories that we tell, okay? Through our own stories. Last Friday, I had to drop my son off up in Yucaipa, and I stopped at the Stater Brothers up there, right? Because I love that Stater Brothers up on Bryant Avenue. And I get in line after I get my couple of things. There's a young man ahead of me. He's just getting a couple things. And there's a lady behind me. And she's just, I noticed she's buying wine and a bottle of wine and a little thing of cheese, right? And I thought, oh, that looks so fun. The guy ahead of me, though, he gets rung up, and then the cashier tells him, okay, that'll be $14.15. And he says, okay, you're going to hate me. And he pulls out this bag of change, right? He says, there's $15 in here. Now, the lady behind me, it was really funny because there was a very audible, you know. But I was just like, yeah, whatever. Boy, I've had to pay with change before. You know, sometimes you just got a lot of change and you want to get rid of it, too. And so the cashier counts out the money, and it's not $15, it's $13.16. He's 99 cents short, okay? So he's like, are you sure? Because I thought I counted 15. And I'm just like, yeah, right. In my head, I start a story. Okay, it's like, yeah, right, sure you counted, whatever, you know. And he says, okay, if you could just hold my stuff, go ahead and check these people out. I'm going to run out to my car, because I know I have $1 and change out there. I keep telling the story. Yeah, right. Okay, I'm doing that. The cashier says, I can't do that. I've already opened the drawer. I can't check out anybody until I get your money, or else I just have to cancel this. I say, I'll give him the 99 cents. It's fine. It's not a big deal. But all I've got is 20, so I need to pay for my stuff first. Okay, so.
Oh, wow.
So then he's like, oh, really? After, you know, I made you guys all wait? And I'm like, no, it's okay. It's really okay. Just go ahead and go, and don't worry about it. I'm happy to do it for you. He says, well, you know, are you sure? You can, if you meet me outside at my car, I'll give you the 99 cents. I said, no, it's really okay. The lady behind me says, just take the gift and go. So he's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yes, I'm sure. It's totally okay. So he goes. I pay, and I give the 99 cents. I walk outside. He's parked right next to my car, right? But he's in an SUV. There's a woman his age sitting in the front seat reading. There's a dog in the back seat. I thought, wow, this is really different from the story I was telling in my head. Okay, I figured he rode up there on a bike or was passing through or something, or would be in some, car where the trunk didn't latch or something. I don't know, but I was telling myself stories, right? And then, I noticed he's not in the car, but he's bending over and looking for something. So I'm like, well, boy, I told myself a wrong story. And I just get in my car, I start it up, he knocks on my window. I roll the window down, and I'm like, hey. He goes, here. He drops 99, actually it was $1 and change, into my hand.
Oh my gosh.
And I was just like, wow, okay. And I said, well, thank you, Now I used my thoughts to make a story up that wasn't true. Mm-hmm. And the story was based on my perception because of my history. Mm-hmm. Okay? I had a history of experience with people with a lot of change, or whatever, however that looks, right? So I made up a story that wasn't true. Now, if I had been parked at the other side of the parking lot and went out a different door, I may never have seen this young man, and I would have held on to that wrong story. Mm-hmm. Okay, that happens to us. Sometimes we make up a story and we don't get to see the opportunity that we made a mistake. Okay, luckily, I got to see that opportunity, and I realized I had made that up. And so I went back to step 2 in our Rainbow series, which is God is in all of our relationships. And so it's like, okay, I did not see the divinity in this relationship. And I started there, accepting our relationships. Okay, so our beliefs, our history, they do shape our perception, and then our perception shapes what we believe about things. Okay, so I thought about this girl who accused me of having all this negative thinking because of my allergies. Now, our thoughts do affect our health. If we are in a space where we're really coming from a space of fear, or we have a lot of stress in our lives, our chemistry changes. It really does. Our chemistry does change, and it can give us stress-related issues. Okay, so I'm not saying that our thoughts don't affect our health at all. They do. But coming from a loving space, okay, coming from that divine mind, we don't ever look at ourselves or anybody else and say, you're sick, what were you thinking? Okay, we see the bigger picture, because when we look at the bigger picture, we see things about that and we learn things from it that maybe we never would have learned. And I'm going to have a really good example toward the end here. So we're on part 6 now of our rainbow journey, and the color indigo represents, or navy blue, or sapphire, or whatever we want to call it. It represents wisdom, and it represents divine wisdom, and it represents how the Christ mind, or the divine mind, is connected to our own mind and our thought process. Now, St. Paul said, "Let the same mind be in you that was also in Christ Jesus." This is one of my favorite go-to verses, because Christ was a human being, okay, a man. He was a man who opened his mind. He came from a loving space, and he got a direct connection then to divine mind. And so that's where he worked his miracles from, was a space of divine mind. So we're letting the divine mind work through us. And this is where having an open mind connects us directly to divine power. We can only have an open mind when we come from a space of love first. I also like that he says, let the same mind be in you. Okay, he doesn't say search, struggle, coerce, reach, grab, trick, hook, reel in. Okay, letting the divine mind work through us is a process of allowing, which means it's already seeking to work through us. It's not like it's out there somewhere saying, well, I wonder if so-and-so's ready yet. Maybe I'll stop by later and see if her brain is open, her mind is open. No, divine mind's always right there, ready to work through us. So for us, it's a process of allowing. So that brings us then to the spiritual truth for this level, which is seek only the truth. Seek only the truth. And we do that by following the steps through the Rainbow series. Okay, so we first look at the package that our life is in. Can we accept it? When we can see God in our whole life, we can accept that package. We look at the package our relationships are in. when we can see God in every relationship, even those short-lived ones from people at stores that have giant bags of change, when we can see God in even those relationships, that every relationship is divine somehow, then we can accept that and move then to accepting ourselves and the package we come in, that we are already good enough. No matter how tall we are or what our age is or our level of education or our talents, we were already created perfect for God to work through us. Okay, so we have that level of perfection. We can accept that package that we're in also. We are in a space of trusting how God works through all things, right? God works through everything in our life, in every relationship that we have, and through us. That gives us a level of trust so we can come from a space of love. When we come from a space of love, we are then allowed access to the spiritual truths, because the key to the higher spiritual truths is love. So we start making choices that are us moving toward our highest good. We surrender our will to divine will, because the divine is unlimited. We have limited thinking. What we think is for our best may not be for our best, because we have limited thinking. We cannot always exceed our own expectations. However, the divine can always exceed our expectations. That is why surrendering our will to divine will is so powerful, because then we can let things come into our life that we may not have imagined before. Then we tap into that spiritual wisdom, because we've surrendered our will. Okay, so we get this level of wisdom that allows us to see the world from a higher space and gives us the ability to express the brightest version of ourselves. Now, when we are coming from this space of wisdom, because it's with love, people will start to recognize what our soul purpose is. That's why when we meet people who are, they just seem so loving, like they just come from the space of love all the time. We say things about them like, oh, she's such a good listener, or she's got these amazing healing hands, or man, he can just fix anything. There's nothing he can't fix, or he's the best manifester. He thinks of something that he wants to do, and then he just does it, right? It's because they've been able to tap into that level of spiritual wisdom and give us an example. And so when we're doing that, then we're actually expressing our soul purpose in the world. We're living our soul purpose because we're coming from that higher spiritual wisdom. Carolyn Mace calls this ordination. Ordination is not just becoming a priest or a minister. Ordination is living our soul purpose. Okay, that's ordination. And every single day, we get the opportunity to be ordained in our soul purpose again by allowing that same mind that worked in Christ to also work through us. Now, one of the interesting things that happens when we are allowing that mind to work through us is we have a lot of something called synchronicity. I think everybody here, we all have heard the term synchronicity, right? The meaningful coincidence. Synchronicity, it speeds things up for us. It guides us. It's like that GPS, right? When we need to make a new turn in our course, a synchronicity will happen that'll inspire us. And a synchronicity is always like a wow, that was really interesting kind of event. And so it helps us to change course really fast. In the Bible, there's a story of Cornelius and Simon Peter, and it's in the book of Acts. And Cornelius is a man who loves God, and he wants to connect with somebody who he can talk about God with. So he has this vision and an angel comes to him and says, Simon, who is called Peter, and they always do that in the Bible, I don't know why, they just don't say Peter. So they say Simon, who is called Peter, is staying at Simon the tanner's house, and you should talk to him. So when he's done with his vision, he sends 3 of his servants to go to this tanner's house. Meanwhile, Simon Peter is at the tanner's house. He has a vision that 3 men are going to come and get him to go talk to Cornelius. And so when that happens, it's like, well, we were meant to connect. We were meant to talk to each other, right? So synchronicities, they help us to follow this higher wisdom. Okay? Now, I also see synchronicities as a thumbs up from the universe. Sometimes I'm feeling good about things, but I want to good job. I want a good job, right? Like my dog likes it when I say, good girl. She likes that. It remotivates her. And sometimes I like that too, right? And I like to tell my kids they're doing a great job and thank them, for what they're doing for me. And so I will see interesting things. I ask for numbers because I love numbers. So the other day I asked for a good job from the universe, and I asked for a series of numbers on cars. And what was so interesting is I had 3 cars pass me. The first car had a 73 in the license plate. The next car had a 63 in the license plate. The third car had a 53 in the license plate. And I like that series of, what are the odds, right? And so I like those kind of series. Now, I am doing a wedding next Saturday, okay? And I called this gal this last Monday. We were just gonna talk about, little things she wanted for the wedding. And I'd also that day had asked for a synchronicity from the universe, and I wanted a story I could tell today, okay? So I call her up, we chat, and then she says to me after we're all done, she says, I found you in the most interesting way. And this has been a couple months ago that she found me, right? And what had happened was I was inspired to post the link to our church's website, the page in particular that I do weddings. I posted that on Facebook. At the same time, this young lady was speaking with a friend of mine who she works with. Now she's planning a wedding. They were just gonna go to the courthouse, but she buys this beautiful dress. Her fiance says, we shouldn't go stand at the courthouse and wait for a number to be called. Why don't we just have a wedding? Just have a small one. So she's talking with her friend, who's also my friend, and they're talking about how, what should she do then? How should she find a minister? Where should she look? Does it matter? Blah, blah, blah. What church should she call? My friend, who just checks her Facebook on her phone, happens to check and sees my link. And so this girl, right when she was asking for help, she got it. Right when I asked for a nice synchronicity, I got it. Okay, so that is just how they work. Now, synchronicities will also happen even when we are not in a good space, because the universe, that's its highest priority is for us to be happy, for us to have an abundant, happy life. Okay, that is its priority. So it is always knocking on our door, right? It is always seeking to work through us. But if we are in a space where we're feeling anger or resentment, that's a different energy working in our body, right? When we're in a space of anger or resentment, we don't often get good ideas. In fact, we're not even present. We're somewhere in our history thinking about something that bothered us or that upset us. We're thinking about somebody that we can't forgive. So we've blocked that flow of divine energy that flows through us. That doesn't feel good. And I was trying to think about this. Have I ever felt really angry and yet it was good? It was a good feeling? No. I couldn't think of it. Have I ever been blaming my past or some person in my past and it felt good and things worked out? No, it didn't. That's because there's no divine energy going through us, right? And that's the divine energy that's unlimited. It's the divine energy that exceeds our expectations and inspires us with ideas to get out of the mess that we're in, right? So we have to be present to have access to that. We want divine grace now, right? We want to feel God working through us now. We want to radiate love, embody love, let love transform our world, right? Now. Okay, we don't want to get it later. Although sometimes when I've been mad, I've been like, well, I'm just going to be mad now. Later on, I want to be loving, right? But it didn't get me anywhere to do that. M. Scott Peck said, the truth is that our finest moments are most likely to occur when we are feeling deeply uncomfortable, unhappy, or unfulfilled. For it is only in such moments, propelled by our discomfort, that we are likely to step out of our ruts and start searching for different ways or truer answers. Or Carolyn Mace says, nobody wants to get off a really comfortable couch, right? So if we're feeling stuck, if we're feeling angry, upset, we're blaming, we're resentful, we can't forgive, we're stuck somewhere in our history, and we can't allow this wisdom to work through us. We don't have access to it, so we can't help ourselves, we can't help anybody else. But luckily, when we're feeling this, we know we feel bad. right? It's not sneaking by. We know we feel bad. And so we can ask ourselves, where is my energy right now? Where am I stuck right now? And then we just want to pray. This is how I do it, okay? This is what gets me moving again. I center myself, right? I feel myself breathing. And I love the whole chair exercise where you feel yourself sitting in the chair, right? Because it brings you back here. And then I say, I'll close my eyes and I'll say, I need some divine grace and love now. I say now. And then I start at step 1, okay? In the Rainbow Series, what in my life am I not accepting? And I just work my way through that. What in my relationships am I having difficulty with? Where in my personal self, my personal package, what am I having a problem with? Okay? When I can figure out what in those first 3 steps is off, then I can get into a space of love. And then I can surrender my will to divine will. Okay, so maybe it's not in my best interest to plan out vengeance on, somebody. Maybe I'll let God work through me and surprise me. Because then when we get to a place then where wisdom will work through us, that divine wisdom is there, that Christ mind is working in us to exceed our expectations, to expand our mind and open us up to those surprises. That's when we're really co-creating our reality. Okay, we're co-creating with the universe because we can work with everything around us, right? Now, this doesn't mean that our life will be perfect. And me and a friend of mine had a real good conversation about this recently because she just read The Secret. It was the first time for her. But I remember that when I first saw the movie. It was like when it first came out, you could only watch it on the website. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to think about happy things and that's what I'm going to get. But then I didn't. And I would be like, well, I thought about a happy thing and yet this bad thing happened. I'm a failure. And then we get to a space where we're blaming ourselves, or we have people saying, well, you're just thinking negative. And then we're like, well, gosh, I'm like totally screwing all this up, which means we're not accepting the package our life is in. We're not accepting the package our relationships are in. We're not accepting the package that we are in. If we're judging ourselves because we have some kind of thing going on with us, and we're saying, wow, I'm just not thinking correctly, we're judging ourselves, which means God can't work through us. We can't have that unlimited mind work through us when we're judging ourselves. So we're not going to be inspired. We're not going to have the bright ideas. We're not going to be able to work with what we have already, okay, because we're not liking ourselves. There is a man named Randy Pausch, and this is the story I was telling you would be at the end of this. Randy Pausch was Pausch, he had terminal pancreatic cancer. He was a professor, but he also got to do some really fun things. Like he worked with Walt Disney for a little while. I think he worked on Toy Story. And so he was into the animation or something. Okay, he got to do some really fun things with his life. He wrote a book called The Last Lecture. Because in the college, college people, the professors will say, well, what would you do as your last lecture? And it's kind of that last lecture to really go out there and change lives, right? Well, so Randy was actually faced with his last lecture. And he said, we cannot change the cards we are dealt, just how we play the hand. And if you've ever, he was on Oprah. If you search on YouTube, he has some amazing video out there. He's gone now. He died. He left behind a beautiful family. Okay, it was very sad. On Amazon, his book is #1 in the self-help and psychology and humor. Okay, #1. Amazon sells a lot of books. And we know how big the self-help section is too, right? It's gigantic. Okay. Since 2008, when he wrote the book, he has sold more than 5 million copies just in the United States. But it has been translated into different languages. It's been sold all over the world. But over 5 million copies just here in the US. Now, when we come from a space of wisdom, okay, that loving wisdom that takes us through the heart, okay, to allow us to see the bigger spiritual picture and accept the package that all of this is, this big cosmic reality that was created for us to work in. Okay, we see the spiritual gifts in these bad situations. Okay? With this higher spiritual wisdom, we understand we don't have to approve of these situations. We don't have to say, oh, well, it was his calling. He was meant to die. It was meant. This was ordained, blah, 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 blah. Okay, we don't have to say that. Now, me, 20 years ago, if I had heard this story, I would have said, oh, he had cancer. He was thinking negative thoughts. That's what got him there. Okay? I was new into healing arts. I read Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life. The book that has the little section in it where you can look up the issue. Okay, I worked with all my clients and they would say, oh, my kidney's bugging me, or my knee's bugging me, or I get headaches all the time. I'd look it up in the book, right? Well, this is what your problem is. Okay? Now, Deanna, 20 years ago, this is all she was capable of doing because she could not accept the package her life was in. She could not accept the package her relationships were in, and she could not accept the package that she was in. That Deanna, 20 years ago, couldn't connect into her heart. Okay, she could not tap into that spiritual wisdom. She had no access to it, so she had no wisdom. Okay, all she had was knowledge that she was picking up in books and not even using it correctly. Okay, that's where that Deanna was. Okay, now I see life completely differently. And when I read Randy's story a couple years ago, I didn't approve of it. I didn't approve of what happened to him. I watched so many videos with him in it, and he's cheerful and he's upbeat and he has a beautiful message to share and he has beautiful children. And he told this story of getting a new car, and he went to his sister's to get his niece and nephew to take him for the weekend, and his sister got all upset. Oh, you be careful in his car. Don't make a mess in this car. And so he poured his soda on the floor of the car. And he's like, don't even worry about it. It's just a car. Okay, I did not approve of what happened to that man. My thought is he could have kept giving. He could have kept giving beauty to this world. Okay? I accept what happened to him though, because it's happened. He's gone. And I also though recognize he left a legacy behind him. He wrote that book. It sold over 5 million copies in this country. So how many people have read that book and had their lives changed from it? Okay, how many people? I know the first time I watched his 10-minute video from Oprah, I bawled like a baby. And even when I was thinking about it again to talk about today, I thought, I hope I can get through his story without crying. Okay, because I got teary just thinking about it yesterday. All right, he did something phenomenal. He did leave a legacy behind him. Now, the greatest service, the greatest act of service that we can do for another person is to overcome our own personal crises. And Randy did that. He didn't approve of what was happening in his life, but he accepted what was happening, and he got his butt in gear because he wanted to get that last lecture done. He wanted to leave something behind that would change people. And so he did that. Okay, when we transcend our personal tragedies, we embody a type of grace that other people have access to. Okay, when I first read about Randy's story, I was having problems. I was having some personal problems. But when I read his story, it put my life in perspective. And I thought, you know what? I can already be grateful for how my life is as it is right now. I don't have to change anything. I can already be grateful. And then watching his video, listening to him speak, I was inspired. And I thought of things I could go ahead and do, that I could go ahead and do to change things. And I thought about things I could do to help me deal with the things I couldn't change. He transcended his own personal tragedy, and he embodied a grace that's still there. It is still there for us to tap into, even though he's gone physically. His physical body is gone from us, but his message is not. Okay, knowledge is not wisdom. Wisdom is what we get when we start having experiences, when we have the love working through us so that we can put knowledge to good use for the highest good of ourselves and those around us. Okay, we can tap into it in a way that's very loving, okay, in a way that's very expanding. We've all known people who are really smart, and yet they didn't make people feel better necessarily, okay? I can remember listening to someone who was so smart, and I thought they were the smartest person I'd ever met, and yet he said some really mean and unsupportive things. I'm like, well, that's too bad. That's a shame. All those brains aren't, sharing some information in a way that would just make people go, wow, this is awesome, right? It wasn't feeling very good. But see, our divine wisdom is accessed through the heart, right? We're going through the heart first to get to that spiritual wisdom. And that's what makes spiritual wisdom so amazing and so powerful, because it's infused with love. It's infused with understanding. We come from the heart. The Christ mind is what's working through us. That unlimited mind, that mind that can always exceed our expectations. That's what's working through us. So we co-create a reality that's filled with love. We co-create a reality that's filled with understanding and compassion. And we co-create a reality that is inspired and divinely directed. So it's always for our highest good. It's always for the highest good of those people around us. And we ignite a divine grace that helps us to expand and helps people around us to expand also. So until next time, remember that you are a divine expression of a loving creator, and you are a force for good. In everything you do, with every beat of your heart, with every breath you take, you are radiating light and love out into the world. In everything you do, you are blessed, and so it is. Amen.